Alright guys, so it's time for part 2 of my Attack on Titan Chapter 103 discussions. In the previous video, we talked about Jean, the parallels between this chapter and a scene in chapters 58 and 59, and how likely it is that Jean or Falco are going to die in the next chapter. So check that out and my review of chapter 103 if you haven't already. And don't forget to come back for part 3, where we'll be discussing Zeke and Levi and their quote-unquote battle. But in this video, we're going to be talking about Armin. A couple of you guys really wanted me to elaborate more on my feelings about Armin using the nuke, and yeah, this is definitely something worthy of further discussion. Now, as many of you already know, Armin is my favorite character in the manga, next to Levi. I've done a lot of videos about Armin, and as I said before, I really didn't expect him to use the nuke. I mean, I thought it could happen, but I really didn't think he would do that. A lot of people had been talking about it, but I really couldn't see it happening. And I guess it was probably for the same reason I couldn't see Eren turning into a Titan and attacking the festival. I think I, like so many others probably, have been making the mistake of expecting these characters' actions to reflect the people they were 4 years ago, not who they are now. These characters have had 4 years to take in and assess the situation they're in, to plan and calculate. They're not acting out of impulse. This whole thing is obviously premeditated, and driven, I'm sure, partially by emotion, but mostly by necessity. In my recent discussion about Eren, I talked about how he had to change who he was as a person in order to continue on to his goal, because although he had chosen to continue to pursue his enemy in order to gain freedom for the people of Paradis, the situation had changed drastically from humans fighting monsters to humans fighting humans. And Eren having always been someone who regretted it when people died, he would have had to change a lot in order to accomplish what he accomplished in these recent chapters. But that, of course, is not just true for Eren. That's true for everyone in the Survey Corps, including Armin. Every single one of these characters has had to come to terms with the fact that they would have to kill other humans to survive. Well, except for maybe Flock. He has no soul. When it comes to Armin, considering we only got to see 2 panels of him, it's really hard to say where his head is at right now, or what he's really thinking and feeling. Judging from his expression, he certainly doesn't look happy about what he's having to do. I'm sure he regrets having to take those lives, but he had no choice. After such a vicious attack on Marley by Eren, there is no doubt the Marley would retaliate, and those ships were how they were going to get their armies to Paradis. But not anymore. And although I was surprised that Armin used the nuke, looking back, there has definitely been foreshadowing leading up to this decision. There is one specific moment that was a very important stepping stone for Armin being able to go this far. So let's go back and revisit the same scene we were talking about in the last video when we were discussing Jean's character arc. This time, I want to look at what Armin says, specifically what he says about himself. In this scene, Armin is clearly deeply disturbed by his own actions. He questions why it was that he was able to pull the trigger first, why she hesitated, but he did not. Levi tells him that he did the right thing, and that any loss of life would have spelled failure for all of them. That the only thing he can do now is accept his, quote, new self. This scene, aside from being great character development, is really important now, because what it really does is show that there is definitely more to Armin than it seems on the surface. It shows that Armin is fully capable of, in a split second, making the necessary decisions to keep his comrades alive, even if that means taking the lives of others. So considering this scene, I guess I should have expected that Armin would ultimately choose to sacrifice the enemy to save his own people. And the way the scene ends is interesting as well, because it does leave things kind of ambiguous when it comes to Jean. Despite what Levi says, when he's scolding Jean about not shooting, at the end he asks, was what you did actually wrong? This is so interesting because what it suggests is that Jean not shooting and forcing Armin to do it was inherently significant, almost like it was meant to happen. And yeah, that moment for Armin was a pivotal moment in his character development and in leading up to what's happening now. I don't know if it's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, but if it weren't for Armin having to pull the trigger that day, he never would have had this experience of having to kill another person in order to protect someone he cared about. And this is an extremely important stepping stone to the decision he made last chapter to use the Colossal's nuke ability in this battle. If that hadn't happened, I don't think it would have been believable for Armin to make the stretch from who he was before that to using the nuke now. When Levi said Armin had to accept his new self, he had to accept that he was this kind of person, the kind of person that was capable of doing this sort of thing, whether he wanted to be that or not. And that experience during the Uprising arc taught him that. And although it's obviously not what he would prefer, if that hadn't happened, I don't think this battle would be happening right now. At least not the way it's currently going. If Armin hadn't done what he did during the Uprising arc, he wouldn't have been able to do what he's doing now. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to like, share, comment, and of course subscribe if you haven't already. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter, and check out my Patreon if you want to help support this channel. Thanks again so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.